I'm Rebecca Williams. I'm the Executive Director of Fair Vote Illinois, and I'm here to tell you why voting needs an upgrade. So, the sad truth of America today is our politics are broken. This is not just a few people who feel this way. We have polls showing that up to 86% of people think that government just isn't working. That is anywhere from the local to the national level, and public trust in government is near historic lows. An important thing to understand about why we have gotten into this situation where representatives are really not responsive to the people, they are not focusing on issues that constituents care about most, is that we often don't really have much choice in who we are electing, and the way we vote limits voter choice. And that way, at least in Illinois here, is mostly plurality voting. Plurality means that to win, a candidate needs to get the most votes, but they don't necessarily need to get a majority of the votes. So, of course, if you only have two people running in a race, someone will get the majority. But once you get a bit more choice, once you get three or more, a candidate can often win with less than that majority. This makes it so as a voter, we have to take some considerations into account. We might think, okay, I like this person, but do they even have a chance of winning? We might think, will I be wasting my vote? This is something that often comes up if someone is considering voting third party or if they like a brand new candidate in the system. And then for the candidate side, instead of really considering what's going to appeal to a broad constituency in the community, their campaign manager might just be thinking, okay, what's the least number of voters we need to win? Another consideration they might have before even getting into the race is they might think, am I just going to be a spoiler? Am I similar to another candidate? And then they choose not to even run, again, giving us less choice as voters. And with every election, at least at the presidential level, you're going to see a similar thing. So we're all kind of familiar with this. Someone who's more on the right might say, you know what? I really don't love the Republican candidate this time. I think I'm going to vote Libertarian. And then their conservative friends go, what are you talking about? You're crazy. The awful Democrat is going to win. If you're on the left, you might have someone that's like, I just don't know that I can support the Democrat this time. I really like what the Green Party is saying. They say, what? No. Oh my goodness, you're going to help the evil Republican win. So even when it seems like we have a little bit more choice, we really don't because we understand the way the system works. And with only two viable choices, most people just end up voting for the lesser of two evils. And the candidates that do get elected really don't have to be all that responsive to the people, just to the power brokers that help them get there. I'll give a couple examples of these plurality wins from here in Illinois, where we see candidates advancing with far less than majority support. When it comes to our legislative races for Congress or the state legislature, often when you get to the general, you do only have two candidates. So the real race happens in the primaries. This is where you can see more candidates, such as this example from 2010. This was in a pretty safely blue district. So, of course, whoever went on to win the Democratic ticket was going to win that. And Robin Gable won that primary with just over 27% of the vote. So, nothing against her, but we really have no idea if she was the most favored candidate amongst that constituency. Here's an example from the Republican side. Again, this is a safely red district. This race happened back in 2020. Again, five candidates, nicely competitive primary. But because they're able to win with plurality, Paul Jacobs got barely over a third of the vote. We have no idea if he was the favorite in his community either. There are other places that try to deal with this by using runoffs. That is what we do here in Chicago. We say, hey, someone should win with a majority. And we at Fair Vote Illinois agree with that. But instead of using ranked choice voting, which I'll explain further, they use runoffs here. What that does is you can see in 2019, there were 14 candidates. And they just pick the two that get the highest percentage of votes. So between Tony Preckwinkle and Lori Lightfoot, they got less than 35% of the vote between them. And they just went on to the runoff, and voters had to choose between the two of them. A similar thing happened in 2023. There were 9 candidates. Of course, no one got a majority. And so you just take the top two, that goes to a runoff. Voters have to come out and vote all over again. And they're just given these top two choices out of initially a really broad field. So, what we're doing here, this really isn't democracy. And we must do better if we want to get back to a place where we feel politicians are actually responsive to our needs. Fortunately, there is a better way, and that's ranked choice voting. Quickly, I want to discuss how ranked choice voting is used nationwide, just to demonstrate this isn't a brand new thing within our country. It's been growing quite a bit. Back in 2000, there wasn't much use of it. It was just a couple of cities using it. But the movement started to really grow. And by 2012, we saw use in a little over a dozen cities, including a lot in the Bay Area and San Francisco. Minnesota started picking it up, and some on the East Coast. By 2023, we've really gotten this explosion of RCV, even more so now with 2025. We have 2 states that are using it statewide for all of those congressional elections and everything. That's Maine and Alaska. And then we have just about 50 cities that are using ranked choice voting. And as of now, there are 3 in Illinois that have voted to adopt it. And I'll speak a little bit more to that later. The way ranked choice voting works is if you like multiple candidates, you can state that. And depending on how they're doing in the race, it will consider your first choice, but potentially your second, third, or fourth. So we have an example here of how one voter might mark their ballot. We have some characters running for mayor of Toontown, and they have chosen Sylvester as their first choice. Bugs Bunny is their second. Wile E. Coyote is their third. Daffy Duck is their fourth. You don't have to rank everyone with ranked choice voting, and maybe Roadrunner, they just found him to be a real jerk, so they decided not to rank him at all. So let's see how this race shakes out. With the first round of votes, if someone got a majority, then this would be done. They would just win. But with 5, that often doesn't happen, and that's what we see here. We kind of have 2 front runners between Daffy Duck and Bugs Bunny, but no one has gotten to that 50% plus 1. So we're going to go to an instant runoff round. What we're going to do is we're going to eliminate Wile E. Coyote. He got the least amount of votes. And we're going to say what was the second choice of those voters and distribute those votes accordingly. So you see a few went to each of the other candidates, but still no one has the majority. So we repeat this process. Now Sylvester is in last place with 12%, so we're eliminating him. And now, oh, Bugs Bunny is actually pulling a bit ahead, but it's still pretty neck and neck at 43 and 42%. Still no majority. We got to go to one more instant runoff round, and this time we are eliminating Roadrunner. And as we see here, as it turns out, Bugs Bunny emerged victorious with 54% of support from the community. So what this shows is that even though he initially didn't have the most votes, he clearly did a better job of reaching out to the majority of constituents within the community. So even though they might have preferred someone else first, ultimately they were happy with Bugs Bunny. So with ranked choice voting, what you're seeing is winners need majority support. Multiple challengers are welcome. We no longer have to worry about spoilers or splitting the vote. No runoffs are needed for places such as Chicago here. And as a voter, you really get to vote for the candidate you want. You're not just trying to think, okay, who can beat the candidate that I hate? You can support everyone that you like. Now, an important question you might be asking yourself is, okay, this sounds cool, but does it actually work in practice? As I alluded to with the use among many cities, yes. And we have data to back up some of the benefits that we talk about with ranked choice voting. One of the things that I haven't really touched on yet is that ranked choice voting tends to lead to more civil campaigning. It's no longer a zero-sum game for candidates. So they are encouraged to focus more on their own policies, their own qualifications, and maybe speak to where they share overlap with ideas with other candidates. The first use in New York City in 2021, when asking voters, how did you feel about the tone of this election? A lot of voters said it felt about the same, but voters that noticed a change were 4 times more likely to say, oh, yeah, this was more positive. So we're seeing that there. And then we have anecdotal evidence, such as this quote from Minneapolis mayor saying there's relatively little elbowing and attacking because, you'd like to be the second choice, even if you can't be the first. We've even seen some co-campaigning in things like primaries where candidates recognize, hey, we're pretty similar. And so, make sure to rank both of us. An important question that people often ask is, okay, this sounds good, but is ranked choice voting easy? Is this going to make it difficult for voters? Are people not going to know how to fill out their ballot? Fortunately, people intuitively understand how to rank things. Overwhelmingly, in the places that it's been used, we have data showing that voters get it. 95% in New York City said it was easy to rank, and this is a city with very diverse demographics. So as long as you just do a good job with voter education, people get it. We see similarly high results in places like San Francisco, 86%, Minneapolis, 90%. And of course, there are subsequent uses of ranked choice voting in elections. Understanding just goes up and up. Another benefit of ranked choice voting is that it tends to help women and candidates of color. Now, this is not something that's built into ranked choice voting, but what we think is happening here is, again, people are more likely to actually vote for the candidate they like the most. They're not having to consider who do I think can win. And as it turns out, we see more women and candidates of color elected under the RCV system. So you can see here, before RCV, that's in the red. It was 41% for all candidates of color. It's just under 60% now after RCV. And for women of color, it was about 13% before, and it's gone to over 22% now. So just really substantial increases there in the representation within these cities that are using it. Another example of that, we keep using New York City, but it's a great one. Prior to RCV, women never held more than 18 seats on the city council. After one use of RCV, women held a majority for the first time, 31 out of 51 seats. So if this is something that people care about, of getting more women represented in politics, ranked choice voting is a great step to doing so. I think another fair question to ask is, are voters happier with ranked choice voting? Again, we want people more engaged in politics. We want them feeling good about the system and how the elections are run. And overall, we find this, yes. So just a couple examples of that is in New York City, 79% of voters said they wanted to keep using ranked choice voting moving forward. Over 60% are saying, why can't we use this in all our elections? Over 60% of voters in Maine said they wanted to keep and expand it maybe to their local elections and everything. A huge benefit of ranked choice voting for a city like Chicago is it has the potential to save so much money. So Chicago runoffs cost us significant taxpayer money. You can see the costs of the last 3 runoff elections here. So in 2023, that cost just under $20 million. And that's not even to speak to all of the extra costs the candidates have to take on to fundraise for that extra runoff leg of their campaign. So, good question to ask is, what would you prefer Chicago to spend that 20 plus million on if you weren't having to have a runoff election? At Fair Vote Illinois, we are all about getting ranked choice voting across the state. We want to get it at the local level in a ton of places, and ultimately, we really want to see it statewide for our General Assembly, congressional, presidential elections, all of that. Just want to speak quickly to our wins so far. We had a win in Evanston back in 2022. 82% voted yes for that. Oak Park voted in 2024 with 79%. We just had a win in Skokie too, where they voted 58% yes. This is all binding referendums to use for their local elections. So these cities are going to get to start using ranked choice voting to better strengthen their local democracy. We also had a couple advisory referendums in some townships, both Berwyn and Peoria, and both of them voted yes, saying they'd love to use it statewide. And then there's this fun meme that I love. If you're in Chicago or you know people in Chicago and you're convinced this would be great, please go to fairvoteillinois.org, sign up with us. You can sign up to just get updates. You can sign up and let us know that you want to volunteer. You can request a presentation if you are with a group and you'd like to have this full presentation for your group, or you can donate. There's lots of ways that you can help. Currently, we are in the process of lobbying all of the alders across Chicago. We have spoken with many of them so far, but there are still many left that we need to speak to. So if that is something that you are interested in, you can sign up, volunteer, check the box that you'd like to do lobbying outreach, and then we can follow up with you on that.